And thanks everyone for joining, and welcome everyone. Nice to see you today.
Great to be here.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. Cool. So let's get started. I guess we will have quite interesting panel discussion today. Before we jump to the questions, so I also encourage you to ask your question in the chat. We will just grab some interesting ones and we'll just incorporate them into the conversation, or we'll ask our experts closer to the.
Oh, we've lost the host.
Cool. So yeah, before we start, here's an intro question for every one of you here. To kick off things off, could you each of you maybe introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey to becoming maybe an SDR, maybe an SDR leader? What's your journey? And maybe let's get started with Elric.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Elric. So today, like you were saying, I'm working on my solo business. I'm a fractional outbound leader. But before that, I was in SaaS, and I'm still working with SaaS customers, but I was an SDR for 3 years and then in SDR leadership for 3 years. And I've sold to go-to-market leaders, data leaders, HR leaders, and B2C marketing leaders mainly. And yeah, I used to be an SDR, and then I moved to SDR leadership. That's pretty much it on my side.
What about you, Katherine?
Hi, everybody. My name's Katherine. I'm the VP of Global Business Development over at Fivetran. And gosh, I've been in the SDR world for, almost 20 years now. I've been leading teams, never in AE, always just leadership and sales development, which has been good. But I've also been able to really see how this role has changed and evolved over time. And just listening to the team talk about AI and how we're transforming things and ways to develop in 2025 has been really eye-opening for even me. I'm always learning, right? But I would say that probably the most important thing that I'm going to take away from today's session is really how to become even more organized and prepare. So get out your notebooks, your pens, your little AI transcriber, and we're all going to learn from each other today.
Cool. By the way, I just started listening to your podcast with Devid Benthan from Sales Development podcast, and it was almost 8 years ago. And I'm wow, you're so long in this space. So it was pre maybe even automation era.
Oh, definitely way before automation. I tell my BDRs that I used to make cold calls just actually dialing. Using the finger on it with a big fat headset. And we didn't have, I remember when Discover.org started and when they were acquired, and it was it opened up our world to being able to find prospect data, or when LinkedIn even started. So really excited to see where we're at now.
Yeah, great. And what about you, Dad?
Hey, really great to be here, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm David. If you don't know me, I started my career working for a small company called HelloFresh. I was a door-to-door salesperson for them, commission only, and built kind of their team up in Australia, and then I joined Cognism, which is, I assume, something that most people here know. Cognism is a contact data tool. I was at Cognism for 6 years. I grew the SDR team from 4 to over 100 when I left. And then I very recently joined a company called Dinmo to lead their whole go-to-market motion. Dinmo is the opposite of Fivetran. We're the other side of the data warehouse. And one of my new hires has just booked in their first meeting in front of me as we speak. So lots of celebration if you can hear it in the background.
Cool. By the way, probably as far as I know, Cognism has pretty much maybe one of the biggest SDR teams in Europe, I guess, right?
It's pretty big. Yeah,
we
were fairly aggressive. Pretty big team. I think there's some other massive ones, but it was a pretty big team.
Cool. All right. So follow-up question here. So maybe why did you choose to become an SDR leader, maybe rather than just an account executive, maybe an enterprise account executive, sales leader, vice president of sales? What's your journey? Katherine.
I guess I was just really good at being an SDR and
Oh.
just kind of went up through the ranks. I think, as I was trying to figure out what to do next in my career, what I learned was I had to ask for what I wanted. So I just walked into my boss's office and I said, "Hey, look, like you're obviously looking for a manager or a supervisor. I want to be that person for you." And he's like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know you were interested in that." So I asked for the role, I interviewed for the role, and I got it. And, not always, the top performer is always going to be the best leader, right? That's something that I've learned as I interview SDRs to move through management. But I think what's really important is that you want to constantly keep getting in the weeds and learning new techniques if you plan on being a leader of an SDR organization. There's something really exciting about the hunt. There's also something really exciting about watching people promote. I mean, we've promoted over 10 SDRs at Fivetran just recently into AE roles, into CSM roles, into renewals roles. So this is the foundation of any organization. And if you can master this, you can pretty much do anything out there. And so for me, watching people flourish in their careers has really been rewarding.
Awesome. Elric, you?
Sure. So pretty similar to Katherine, actually. But on top of that, I would add that early in my career, I didn't have like great managers or great coaches. So for me, it was like an additional reason to be in leadership, to say, okay, if I'm leading a team, I don't want to be the first coaches and managers I had in my career. So that was also the main reason why I moved to leadership and not to a hero.
And you, David?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo Katherine and Elric, that for me, I felt it was really rewarding to support others more than anything else, and genuinely get a lot of motivation from that. I totally understand people that just want to focus on their own stuff and own their own world, but for me, I think helping others would counteract that. I would add, though, I'm toxically competitive, like so toxically competitive that if I remained in IC, then people start really hating me, and then the other factor was, and this is a bit more practical, but at the time at Cognism, it was where I felt I could add the most value to the company, like truthfully. So, they needed someone to run the SDR team. They didn't really need an AE. So I took the role, and then I was adding tons and tons of value. I felt like I was adding tons and tons of value there. So I kind of stayed on that path for a long time.
Oh, cool. So we can see, like I would say, quite great pattern here. So, because probably all keen on helping other people. That's great, helping them grow. That's probably one of the best motivations, like to help others become more successful. Cool. All right, let's get started. Maybe with question when it comes to building your SDR team. So, what maybe? Question here number one is, what were your biggest challenges when you started building your SDR teams? What other SDR leaders should focus on? So maybe they can apply your best practices here.
I mean, I would say it depends on the size of your organization, right? If you're just a small startup and you're coming in and you're trying to build out your team, you're going to really look at it differently than if you walk into a large organization the way that I did at Fivetran or at Anaplan or at Aptus, right? So as a small startup, I would recommend using an outside agency. I mean, I love hiring in an SDR from the ground up, but when you come in as an SDR leader, you don't always know what that total addressable market looks like. You don't know if the messaging is resonating. So in order to hit the ground running, I always build a use case for using a company like Memory Blue or Operatics that I know Memory Blue just recently purchased if you're in EMEA and you need language resources, right? And starting off there and really testing out the market, and then using another company like Always Hired that can come in and give you those SDRs that are already trained and ready to go. Because in a small startup, you want to hit the ground running, right? Like you want to get your tools in order. So while the Memory Blue is moving over here on this side, you're getting your tools in order. And then you have an Always Hired that's out there training your SDRs that you want to bring on staff, right? So for me, that's really where I start if I'm a really small organization. But if I'm a larger organization and I'm coming in I think you really have to take a step back and just watch the team for a good 30 days, 30 to 60 days, and understand what their processes are and what's working and what's not working before you do make any changes. I think a lot of the times when SDR leaders come in, they just kind of blow everything up. And I'm like, you could be destroying something that is actually working, right? And each industry and each type of messaging in larger organizations has a way of resonating. So just take a step back and listen, and you can make different tweaks and levers with the people that you have in place. You don't always need to just blow it up, in my opinion.
Elric, maybe you, the next one.
Sure. So for me on my side, only work like at a startup most of the time in early stage startup. So for me, the main challenge is educating the founders on outbound mainly because most of the time they don't have experience with outbound in the past. And so that's the first step. And most of the time, I'm not the first person building the team. They already hired junior SDRs, thinking that junior SDRs, they will be able to figure out outbound from scratch. And I think it's really what Katherine was saying about hiring like an agency, for example, to help in the early stage. Here, basically, they wanted to build everything from scratch and didn't work. They had like a manager building the team, but this person doesn't know anything about outbound. So the main challenge for me when I joined the company is this challenge. So it's trying to see if we need to hire externally first before starting everything, because most of the time is we don't have the right people at this stage. We need people with more experience, and we need because we don't have at this stage most of the time we don't have like any training coaching programs in place. So we need people who are already with experience that don't need to rely on training coaching to be successful in this world. So yeah, educating the founders or the salesperson for the sales leader, depending on the stage. But I would say that's my main change most of the time.
Awesome. Ines?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I think for me, those are all great answers. But I think for me, it's similar to Elric again, but it's the culture in general. So it's either if you're going in as the first hire and building everything from scratch, it's setting the culture. For you moving into a team, it's changing the culture, and then also it's this upward management of kind of making sure that you are able to explain to the rest of the company why you're saying you need the culture to be the culture that it is. And like really for me, it's a super responsive team that's highly curious, highly motivated. I've just joined the company that I've just joined is a they only had product and tech people. They're French headquartered, and maybe Elric, like, please don't take any offense when I say, or any French people listening. But the first day I arrived at the office in Paris, I arrived at 8:50 and nobody turned up till 10 o'clock. And it turns out that they kind of start their day at 10, finish at 7. They get the full working day in. But so we needed to rebuild the structure. They need and anybody coming in, they needed to understand that this is how the SDR team operate, and it's going to be really different. And like we're going to be highly responsive, and we're going to be shooting messages everywhere and over communicating, etc., etc. So I think I think that would be the biggest challenge usually.
Cool, awesome. So I guess it's like communication with decision makers, C-level, founders, then thinking how to build everything from the scratch, how to start it, how to motivate your team, and how to have this sales development culture. I would say great culture for your SDR team. Cool. So we have a bunch of questions. I will go through them and we'll ask them a little bit later. Now let's proceed with the next one. So we will keep asking questions about SDR teams. And the next one, what skills and training should SDR leaders focus on future success in 2025? Because again, like the landscape is changing and we'll pretty much need maybe something different next year? Or what do you think? How like what skills and training should SDR leaders focus on for future success 2025? Katherine.
That's a great question. And it really depends on the type of leaders that you have underneath you, right? And what their current skill set is. So depending on, we're talking about a range here, right? But one of the first things that I did when I came into Fivetran was I built out a business case to actually have an SDR enablement person underneath us, right? So they only focused on SDR. And a lot of the times I think SDR gets lost in the sales cycle and they try to treat them like they're AEs. And then they're like, oh, but they're just marketing. And then they follow up on MQLs. And it's like, no, there's a whole band of skills that you really want to hone in on, right? But I would really say this. I would lessen your tech stack, focus only on a couple of set tools, and utilize those tools to align to the skill set that you have in seat right now, and make sure that you're capturing adoption. I think a lot of the mistakes that SDR leaders make is that they spend a lot of money on different tools. And that, number one, is fiscally irresponsible for your organization, but also your team isn't using them because there's a new shiny object over here, new shiny object over there. So you're really not capitalizing. So utilizing those tools to really provide the best messaging that puts your organization with the best spotlight for your total addressable market, right? So focusing in on outbounding, persona messaging, and like using a tool, for example, like a demand base that comes in and really drives to that AI feature, looking at that intent data and understanding what the business use case is that your organization can bring. You can see how that ties in all of the enablement around messaging, tool adoption, and being able to transcribe that into actually brand messaging for your organization. So I would really hone in on that. And not everything. I would really look at what you're using and narrow it down to one or two tools that will really benefit your organization, and understanding all the functionality in those tools. It's something that we're doing right now, and it's really beneficial for my team. And we're getting those vendors to come in and actually do enablement sessions for our team, making sure that the team understands how to use every aspect of the tool, because it's really making my team even more efficient and effective.
Great, thanks. Noted. We will we'll summarize some of your ideas after every round of the questions. So in the chat, everyone, I guess we have lots of SDRs and account executives in the chat. Maybe let us know in the meantime what skills and training maybe your SDR leader should focus for your future success in 2025. Let's see maybe what's like what SDRs feel here. So it might be interesting. So. David, what about you? What should SDR leaders focus on?
Yeah, so I totally agree that if you can afford it, definitely, or if your company has the capacity, definitely bringing in someone to focus on SDR enablement is really important. I'd say, like, for me, the most important thing is continuous training, and less so like exactly like one key skill. I find that often when I'm speaking to other SDR leaders and talking about training, there's a tendency to bring in some outside help on like one specific topic for like one day or week, and then that be it. And there's like, you know, people are human, so they learn it for that week, they get motivated by it for a week, and then they forget it again. So I've just always been a believer. I've been a believer for the past, you know, like 7 years of being in the space. Like the focus is just every week we're doing a different piece of training, and then we keep reinforcing it over and over again. And actually, like, generally how I build my training models is I pick like, you know, 20 different topics, or it doesn't really matter what the number is, but I basically have like 3 months worth of training, and then I just repeat that same training again, and I repeat that same training again. And my reps hate me because they're doing the same training over and over again, but it's you know, it just keeps reinforcing the points until you become an expert. So yeah, for me, like, you know, and always not specific to 2025, but like continuous training is the most essential piece.
Elric?
Yep. For me, I think the main skill is problem solving. And what I mean by that is because most of the time the companies I used to work at, we already have an SDR team or other type of motion. So for example, I'm going to give like a recent example. When I joined the company, we had like, the goal was to build the outbound function, but we already had like a lot of inbound demo requests. And we were still managing the demo requests. So the first step was, okay, but before building outbound, are we doing everything right on the inbound funnel? Because yes, we can build everything from scratch from outbound, but outbound, we know that it's a long-term motion. It can take 6 months to start getting results. So are we doing everything right on the demo request funnel? Yes or no? And the answer was no. So before starting on outbound, that's what we decided to fix. So if I'm talking about problem solving, is it a problem? Is it, for example, what was the conversion rate from someone fill out the form to a demo booked on his calendar? And the answer was 30%. So can we do more? Do we have any internal resources to do more? Do we want to have an SDR? And so the question was more around prioritizing where we should be focusing on, because yes, we can train the team on, for example, on cold calling, but if we can already get more results with what we already have, yeah, let's start focusing on the quick fix. So for me specifically here, it was checking all the funnels we had. So we had demo requests, free trials, everything coming from marketing, and outbound. And outbound was the last one because we had so many things coming from marketing. And so that's how we started to work on. And then starting to evaluate if we have the resources internally, meaning that does the RevOps person can help us on fixing this? Yes, no. Do we need to bring a tool? Because Katherine was talking about tools specifically, and the way I was thinking about bringing a tool, it was to fix a problem, not just to, okay, we need to use a tool, for example, just for the sake of using a tool. No, we bring these tools because we need to fix that. At this company, basically, we bought Lindela, for lead routing and also for scheduling. So because before that, we didn't have anything for the demo request process. So yeah, I would say, yeah, problem solving. I would say it's a big skill that you should focus on as an SDR leader.
Problem solving. Oh, I like it. I like it. Enablement, tools, proper training. Again, tools. We had a question probably from SDR, Sandra. A quick follow-up question here. Training around email deliverables. This one is getting harder. Email messaging, basically copywriting, and then relationship building, especially around social selling. What do you think about like social selling training and this as a skill, social selling as a skill in 2025? Do you have something in mind?
That's where we're getting most of our meetings is through LinkedIn now. Emails have to be a follow-up to a voicemail or to LinkedIn. And you want to let someone know, hey, look, like I reached out to you via email, so take a look if you can. But voice notes on LinkedIn, I think, are super important. I think really persona messaging and being concise, right? There's nothing worse than getting a connection request and someone's like, and now I'm going to pitch you a tool. Please don't do that. Please stop doing that. I can't tell you how many people I decline because of that. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds good. Like you just catfished me. So not interested, right? But I have reached out to lots of people that have pinged me on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, look, like you obviously run large teams. This is how it could benefit you. Let's have a conversation. That's awesome. Like be real with like we're all human beings, right? Like just be real. We know you're going to pitch us something, but somehow tie it back to my business. I think that's super, super important. But also what's super important that I'm trying to get my BDRs to even do, and this is a tip, is, you've got your prospects. You can see what your prospects are doing online. And as you're commenting on things that they comment on, they're reading through those comments. So provide some sort of brand messaging, to what Elric said earlier, provide something that gets them to come to your website and become an inbound MQL. Show them. You can easily use your website and you can easily say, oh, that's a great idea. Have you thought about reading this over here? And then now you've got the whole string of people looking at what you've just posted on without being so salesy about it. There's ways to go about social selling. And I think it's really important. bring in LinkedIn, utilize them. They can teach you how to do all of this stuff. But then there's also tons of outside consultants that come in and teach your BDRs how to do LinkedIn trainings and how to social sell even more. I think it's a huge market that's been untapped.
Elric, what do you think?
Of course. So for social selling, if we talk about social selling specifically, something I thought in the past was as a SDR, BDR, you need to have like a personal brand. And I think you don't need that as an SDR. You just need to optimize your profile because like Katherine was talking about, social selling specifically, people are going to check your profile before, for example, replying to you. So first step, optimize your profile. Focus on your buyer persona, how you can help them, the challenges that you can help them solve. And then on LinkedIn specifically, for me, there is two things. Is this person active on LinkedIn or not? And because for me, it's the process will be different for both of them. So if they're active, I'm going to check what they do, what they comment on, and I want to use that to start a conversation with them. If they are not active on LinkedIn, I'm still going to pitch, but it's relevant to them, it's relevant to their business. And I'm going to give an example because I know Katherine and David, they work also on data leaders. So a year ago, I was working for a company selling to data leaders, and 95% of the prospects, they are not active on LinkedIn. And something I learned talking to them was maybe they connect once or twice a month on LinkedIn. So I'm not going to start starting conversation with them, because if they're going on LinkedIn every 3 weeks, and I'm asking a question, and well, I'm not going, it's a waste of time. But a guy say yes, for example, on a meeting. He was the data governance leader in France for a big company. He said yes to a meeting and disappeared. And I said, well, okay, I tried to find his phone number. I had his email address, didn't reply. And then 3 weeks after, he replied, he said, oh, sorry, I didn't go on LinkedIn for the past 3 weeks. Yeah, I'm done for the meeting. So yeah, just book some time in your calendar. And for those specifically, what I learned is I was using something relevant about them and to pitch what we are doing on the problems that we could solve. But because I learned that, yeah, not everyone is spending their time on LinkedIn every day. And so for technical buyer personas, that's something I learned last year. So.
Thanks. David, and you, what do you think about social selling skill?
Yeah, I again agree with everything. I'll just add that I think when people think about social selling, they think about trying to become a LinkedIn celebrity. I think you can tell from the way Katherine and Elric are speaking, that's not the goal. In fact, usually it's a distraction. And so it's a pre-warning now that actually, like, generally I find that people are trying to do it because they think that there's a massive shortcut, and they will do one post and then suddenly 10 people will arrive at their door and say, hey, I'd love your platform. So I do really promote you posting and trying to build a following. I think it's great for your career long term, but always do it as kind of like the side hustle to, like, you know, for me, picking up the phone, you know, but also like reaching out to people on LinkedIn and using it for that. However, there is definitely value in posting to build like to essentially build trust with your buyers. Like if you're posting about something that's relevant, you're hopefully showing your buyers that your prospects that you know your stuff. But don't get too distracted by it.
Great suggestion. Also, but when I was in SDR, I just started randomly posting some useful content, and then I didn't realize that it could be useful for like future career development. So maybe social selling, you can transform it in something else in the future. So that's a great suggestion. Cool, thanks. Because yeah, sounds like Katherine, your idea in terms of social selling skill resonated with lots of people in the chat. So cool. All right, the next question. Like maybe it's a quick one, like a brief one. How do you ensure that SDR teams remain motivated, like in a high pressure? Because I feel like it's a super high pressure, rejection-heavy role. So how do you motivate your SDRs like to stay productive? let's get started with Elric. Yeah.
Sure. So for me, what works, I'm going to mention what works for me and my teams. So I start always trying to understand what motivates them outside of work. It's not like about spiff or stuff like that. Most of the time for me, it's for each SDR, I know what they're working on outside of their job. So are they getting married this year or next year, for example? Do they want to buy a house? Because if you think about setting goals personally versus the quota that the company is giving them, it's different. And if you understand why they are in sales, why they are in SDR, and how this job can support their personal goals, for me, that's the way I motivate them, because it's easier than to have like a conversation about, okay, but you mentioned that you wanted to, I don't know, save money for your down payment for your house, for example. So you said that you need $500 per month for this down payment, for example, and it's easier for me to tie that to motivate them to their personal goal. And yeah, that's what I'm using mainly with my team.
Katherine?
Yeah, I mean, I think every single one of your SDRs has a different motivation for being successful. I mean, we run a ton of spiffs here. Like during the Olympics, we ran a spiff that tied to current events that were happening. You know, in America, we tend to run a March Madness, which is college basketball out here. But what I've noticed across the board is the biggest motivator for BDRs is their career path. And being able to show them, hey, look, like if you can consistently hit your quota, the world opens up for you within this organization. And you have to hit these different milestones. So keeping them on track with that in their one-on-ones, holding them accountable to career development really has set the stage for motivating my team, particularly. You know, we have a very robust career path that they can take. We've outlined it in a PowerPoint. It's on our slab so that they can always refer back to it. We're constantly referring back to it when it comes to attaining their quota for the month, for the quarter, for the year. It doesn't hurt to get your BDRs into President's Club if you're doing President's Club. That's always a big motivator for my team. But I would say really lean in hard to that career motivation. And even for outside of your org, they can put on their LinkedIn profile, tying it back to your brand again, right? They can put on their LinkedIn profile, how many times have they hit quota? You know, were they the top performing BDR on their team? You know, how did they increase their skill sets? So that's what we really use as a motivator across my org.
Got it. So like probably like to have a clear career path, maybe playbook for your SDRs. Devid, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard me going last, but yeah, I agree with career path. I think like I'm really big on career path, so you know you've got to have a clear career path. I'm going to speak specifically to the question though, because it's just so that I can add some value. It is a really rejection-heavy role. There are techniques that you can build, or like a culture that you can build within the team, so that rejection doesn't hurt so much. And it's the small things, like I really believe that SDRing is a team sport, you know, like we go way over the top on celebrating each other's wins. Like generally from a cultural perspective, we build channels where some of the recordings of the calls, like the calls that are really bad, where you get really, really badly rejected, they're then going in there to joke about like how badly you got rejected, right? So you're just making light of the situation. So I think what you know, Elric and Katherine were talking about was really the long-term stuff, but there is some stuff in the short term that can really help. And one of those, it goes back to the culture element, is like how can you make it so that when someone like gets rejected, like how they can bounce back really quickly. And I think being able to use each other, like, you know, the people around you, your peers, if you, as a leader, if you can build those connections, then it's good. You're going to be in a much better place for it.
So like to have a culture maybe of it's hard to explain it, culture when you like celebrate those rejection and you all laugh about those. Like,
Yeah.
I see. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I you know, like I've got a maths background, so I think one of the things that I was never the bestseller. In fact, I'm still not the bestseller in any capacity. But one of the things that I think was really useful for me is that like I kind of added a mathematical element to my to the rejections. You'll hear people talk about like every no is getting me closer to a yes. Like I was actually a really big believer of that. I knew statistically, like if I spoke to X amount of people, then I get X amount of meetings. So I just need to get through those X amount of people.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So we have just 3 minutes. I have, but you still have so many cool questions. So let maybe ask you two like quick questions. Number one, maybe how do you see how AI changing and reshapes the SDR role? Maybe use any tools, any recommendations. So like, what do you think about AI sales development role and how to reshape it?
I mean, I think AI is great. I think a lot of people are really nervous that it's going to like replace an SDR. And I'm like, no, that's just not going to happen. Right. But I say use AI in a meaningful, valuable way. Don't abuse it. Don't go into ChatGPT and start writing all your emails there. I think using AI, around intent data, using Nooks, we have a Nooks instance here at Fivetran, and we're able to use AI to show us, who's engaging with us, what are our best buyer personas. Using that to really whittle down who we should be speaking to, I think is really important as you are a BDR, especially if you have an outbounding team. If it's your inbound team, you can use AI to really see who's engaging on your website with you, how to interact with them. You can use it in so many different ways, whether it's through messaging, whether it's through intent data, whether it's through just in general, like learning a little bit more about your industry. I would totally capitalize it, because if you're not, then you are behind. I will say that you're very, very behind if you don't want to just embrace it and find a way to embrace some form of it. You don't have to use it for everything, but embrace some form of it.
Thanks. David, what do you think?
Yeah. So I believe that the role AI is playing is to make SDRs better equipped. I totally agree. There's no way it will replace it. If it started replacing it, the government would step in and stop it, because nobody, because everybody would get a million phone calls and a million emails, and all the channels would be just totally dead. So it's never going to replace it for those reasons. But you are going to be better equipped. I do have a tool that I live and die by, and that is Second Body. It's a AI sales enablement platform that's basically designed to, for SDRs to go on and role play with AI, so that they're more prepared for when they actually make the call. And it's such a fantastic, I was mentioning continuous learning earlier. I invested, 5 years ago, I was investing tons and tons of time on that continuous learning element, because I was always having to think every, spending time preparing training, etc. Nowadays, I use Second Body just to, I basically write a persona that I want Second Body to be, and then I ask each, automatically click a button, and every single one of my reps is then having a conversation or trying to sell to that persona in the morning, and that's the way they start the day. So straight away, I'm getting that, I'm getting everybody role playing, preparing themselves, ready for the day, focused on objections that we want to handle, and then moving on. So that's a super cool piece of kit that I highly recommend anybody checking out.
Elric,
Yeah, pretty similar to what David was saying about, we were not using Second Body, but we were using ChatGPT, the paid version of it. You can role play. Also, you can pitch, give a brief to ChatGPT to say, okay, let's role play this. But I think using a sales tool specifically could be better. But for me, the main use case with AI is account research. That with AI, you can save so many hours of research per week just by using AI. So I don't know right now if there is a better tool than that, but I don't know if you're familiar with Perplexity, but Perplexity is it's Google with ChatGPT, and it's so great for account research. Basically, you can find the last annual report of the company. You can find the last earning call. And what you can do on top of that is being specific about what you are looking for inside of it, and is it relevant to what you sell, so the problem that you're helping with, or the initiative that you can help with. So you can basically, in less than 2 minutes, you can find a lot of information that maybe take you 20 minutes to 30 minutes for each account, and then you can have a talk track for each one of your accounts. And I think AI is, definitely supporting the SDR function for that specifically.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So great. I guess AI will just enable SDR teams. So thanks for sharing those real great tools. Okay, thanks our panelists for these fantastic insights. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Elric. Thank you, Devid.